Coming up on International Trade Focus, we shall take a look at the internal and external factors that are affecting Ghana's agricultural sector and the solution going forward. So recent global happenings, from the COVID-19 pandemic to the current Russian-Ukraine war, continue to emphasize the need to be self-reliant as a country. Presently, the sharp rise in the cost of food items on the market have been attributed to the Russian-Ukraine war and several other internal factors. On today's edition of International Trade Focus, we shall take a look at the Russian-Ukraine war and other internal factors that are affecting Ghana's agricultural sector and how to find a pragmatic solution going forward. My name is Anna Spio and this is International Trade Focus. International Trade Focus is brought to you by Gol Good Energy, ADB, Truly, AGRIC and more, Public Elegance and Pediassi Valley Resort. Stick and stay. Stay tuned for our focal point segment. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO of the United Nations, Food Price Index, FFPI, averaged 159.3 points in March 2022, up 17.9 points from February, making a giant leap to a new highest level since its inception in 1990. The latest increase reflects new all-time high for vegetable oils, cereals, and meat sub-indices, while those of sugar and dairy products also rose significantly. Food prices started rising in mid-2020 and reached an all-time high in February 2022. This is a real market shock caused by high demand and rising prices on food, raw materials, and transportation services, including freight, in the post-COVID recovery period. World wheat prices soared by 19.7% in March, while maize prices posted a 19.1% month-on-month increase, hitting a record high along with those of fuel and other commodities. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, experts say, has led to a further deepening of global food insecurity. Let's briefly take a look at how Russia's invasion of Ukraine is affecting global food production and global food prices. Russia and Ukraine together are top producers and exporters of several important grains such as wheat and maize and vegetable oils. Let's take a look at the two countries' ranking of world food production of major food crops. As at 2020, Ukraine is the world's leading producer and Russia is the second largest producer of sunflower seed or cotton seed oil. In the production of wheat and muslin, Russia ranks 4th in the world, while Ukraine ranks 7th. On barley production, Russia ranks 2nd, while Ukraine ranks 6th. On maize production, Ukraine ranks 6th while Russia ranks 10th. On fertilizer production, Russia ranks 4th while Ukraine ranks 18th. On fuel production, Russia ranks 3rd in the world. Ukraine is the world's largest producer of sunflower oil and, combined with Russia, is responsible for more than half of global exports of sunflower oil. The region is also responsible for over a third, representing 36% of wheat export, making it the world's largest exporter of wheat. Almost every continent depends on them for either sunflower oil or wheat. It's therefore not surprising that any instability in the region is likely to affect food supply in the importing countries, many of which are currently food insufficient due to COVID-19 related challenges and other internal shortcomings. It's been reported that commercial operations in Ukraine's port have been suspended as a result of the war, hindering the country's ability to export its products. Many farmers in Ukraine have fled to neighboring countries for safety. Bloomberg reports that in addition to the invasion's effect on the population and therefore workforce, the destruction of farms, storage facilities, and the transformation of tractors into armored vehicles are all contributing to a reduction in food production. Reduction in food production in Ukraine translates into low or no export. Scarcity of food has led to rising prices within the conflict zone and elsewhere in the world. Both local and global markets are stressed because food demand is high while supply has been restricted. Rising food prices mean rising food insecurity. Food security crisis in Africa has worsened as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Human Rights Watch reports that many countries in East, West, Middle, and Southern Africa rely on Russia and Ukraine for a significant percentage of their wheat, fertilizer, or vegetable oils imports. But the war disrupts global commodity markets and trade flows to Africa, increasing already high food prices in the region. Even countries that import little from the two countries are indirectly impacted by higher world prices for key commodities. Ghana, being a part of the global village, is also faced with the rippling effect of the Russian-Ukraine war. From increase in the cost of fuel to the sharp rise of food items, the country is feeling its own impact of the global crisis. Although some industry players are of the view that several internal factors have further heightened uncertainties. The Bank of Ghana, in its Monetary Policy Committee press release on March 21, 2022, indicated that the Russia-Ukraine war is likely to impact negatively on Ghana's external sector, particularly in the area of some key construction and agricultural commodities.
In the recent past, an average of about 2.5% of Ghana's total non-oil imports have originated from Russia and Ukraine, and around 0.4% of Ghana's total exports are destined to Russia and Ukraine. The main import items from Russia are grains, wheat flour, and fertilizers. In 2021, around 28.7% of Ghana's grain imports came from Russia, and for the first 2 months of 2022, grain imports for Russia accounted for 31.2% of the total grain imports, and about 50% and 39.2% of flour and fertilizer imports, respectively, were sourced from Russia in the first 2 months of this year. Ghana's main exports to Russia are cocoa beans and products, and it accounted for just 0.2% of total cocoa exports.
Ghana's agricultural sector contributes over 37% to the nation's GDP and accounts for over 30% of exports. Although government has made strides to boost Ghana's agricultural industry with policies such as Planting for Food and Jobs, Planting for Export and Rural Development (PED), One District, One Factory, 1D, 1F, industry players say so much more needs to be done in order to attain the self-reliant status we hope to achieve. Ghana continues to spend millions to import food produce. Major agricultural food products imported into the country include bulk commodities such as rice and wheat and consumer-ready food products such as poultry. OEC reports that in 2020, Ghana exported $220,000 in rice, making it the 107th largest exporter of rice in the world. In the same year, Ghana imported $391 million in rice, becoming the 20th largest importer of rice in the world. Although the export figure is welcoming news, comparing how much rice Ghana imported against how much rice it exported, the export figure is almost insignificant. Wheat constitutes top 30 products Ghana imports. All wheat consumed in Ghana is imported, with about 40% of imports coming from Russia, United States, and the rest from Canada and the European Union. Ghana's imports from Russia was $142.32 million in 2019, according to the United Nations Comtrade database on international trade. Here's a breakdown of some commodities Ghana imported from Russia and its value. In 2019, Ghana imported $47.3 million worth of cereal, $36.29 million worth of fertilizer, milling products, malt, starch, inulin, Wheat gluten constituted a whopping $35.69 million. In the same year, 2019, Ghana's import from Ukraine was $99.86 million. Here's a breakdown of some commodities Ghana imports from Ukraine and its value. Animal, vegetable fats and oils cleavage products constitute $3.27 million. Meat and edible meat offal, $1.59 million. Products of animal origin, $1.43 million. And milling products, malts, starch inulin, wheat gluten constitute $1.1 million. And fertilizers constitute $1.05 million. It's worthy to note that in 2019 alone, Ghana's imports from Russia and Ukraine combined was over $241 million. Recent global occurrences from the COVID-19 pandemic to the Russian-Ukraine war continue to drum home the need to be independent as a country. Players within the agricultural sector say in order to strengthen the agricultural industry, which will in turn contribute even more to the country's GDP, factors such as transportation and appropriate storage facilities, proper data collection techniques, adequate agricultural extension services, proper adoption of technology, proper implementation of policies, among other factors, will play a critical role to ensure that the country's agricultural sector lives up to its full potential. Ernest Karaware is the General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, GAU, of the Trades Union Congress, TUC, and our guest on our in-depth segment today. We take a look at the recent hike in food prices and the best solutions going forward. Our in-depth segment comes up next.
Food prices, they have really gone up very, very high. So we'd like to know what is going on with our agricultural system.
Well, it's not unusual. It's not something new. It's just that the levels at which it has food prices have gone up is the worry. You know, the magnitude of the problem is the worry, because we have not been able to develop our agricultural sector well in Ghana. Even though years ago and even today we claim that agriculture is the foundation of the economy, if you look at what we actually do with the agricultural sector, our investments in the agricultural sector is low. You know, technology application is low. You know, we don't have very good storage facility system for our agricultural production, because we talk about post-harvest losses, and we often hear that when at the time of harvesting, like tomatoes, like oranges, they just get rotten, because, and then a few months later we are looking for those same produce we can't get. Plantain, we don't have a mechanism that to store plantain. And when it gets ripe, it will get rotten. You know, so we don't also have well-organized marketing system. You know, if you go to our markets, you see the way food is also treated. The oranges are just poured on the floor. The watermelon are just poured on the floor. The way we preserve our food, you know, it makes the food not last. And all these are problems. And because agricultural produce are bulky in nature, and even highly perishable. You know, if I give you a sack of yam, you know, you struggle to be able to carry that one to your house. And when you take it to your house, by the time you finish eating it, maybe half of it will have gotten rotten. And the same thing is with maize. If I give you 10 bags of maize, where you get a vehicle to carry it, you know, and to store it, by the time you even want to eat it, it will have gotten bad because you need preservation. So this is what happens in the agricultural sector. Agricultural produce is bulky and highly perishable. The routes to the farm gates are very bad. are very bad. You know, when you get to the farm gates, produce are very cheap, but how to transport it to the market centers? You know, so the link between the farm gate and the market centers is a problem as well. You know, tomatoes, by the time you carry it from the northern part of the country to Accra or elsewhere, maybe half of it or 1/3 of it will have gotten rotten, because it takes a number of days for the vehicle to arrive, and beyond that, the handling. So all these things put together makes the agricultural sector a very vulnerable area. So it's not surprising that prices are going up, because we are not doing well as we should.
Okay. So, which food do we export that has the highest exportation?
Interestingly, almost every foodstuff we produce here, we try to export it. We try to export yam, we try to export maize, we try to even export soya bean, we export cocoa, we even attempt to export what? Rice. You know, plantain, we do export it. So, almost everything we try to export. If you look at the vegetables side too, we export vegetables. We also export pineapples, we export banana, and so on. But it's the attitude of our policy that drives people to export. We believe seriously that when you export, that you make more money, because we are looking so much into getting the dollars, into getting the pounds, into getting the euros, and so on. So everything we want to export. But that is also the reason why Ghana is not able to develop the agricultural sector the way we should, because we are exporting raw produce instead of processing it to export it.
Okay.
You know, instead of exporting fresh tomatoes, we don't even have tomatoes to export, so tomatoes doesn't even come in. Like if you take yam, you know, if we were able to slash it into pieces and then preserve it and export it, we are not able to do that. If we are looking at, you know, how much of our cocoa is even exported raw, our maize, our everything is exported raw. We don't process it. We could have blended the soya bean into some form of powder and the rest to export. We are not able to do that. So we export almost everything that we produce in this country.
And they are raw.
And they are raw.
So who is supposed to see to it? Is it government, Ministry of Agriculture? And where does GAU comes in here in all these things? Because this looks like it's a very big challenge. Where do you come in here, and who is responsible for all these things to be done?
Well, agriculture is also largely private driven.
Okay.
It's a private sector driven agriculture, in the sense that the people who are actually in the agricultural production are individuals. And then two, it's also largely peasant farmers driven, smallholder farming that we do in Ghana. In fact, up to 80% of what we produce in this country is done by peasant farmers or smallholder farmers. You know, the rest is done by commercial farmers and so on. But that is the bit. Now, what we need to do is policy that will give direction. You know, all of us are products of policy. All of us respond to policy. You know, so when policy gives direction as to what you should produce, for instance, under the Planting for Food and Jobs, some selected crops were targeted to be the main areas we should produce. Maize is one of them, rice is another. So because of that, in order to increase their production, government decided to subsidize fertilizer, because it was also realized that there was low fertilizer application in the country, and low fertilizer application will lead to low output. So they try to increase fertilizer application by subsidizing the fertilizer so the farmers can buy more of it and put it on their farms. So you can see that government policy is directing what we should do. So we also had a policy that by 2023, Ghana should be self-sufficient in rice production and we should import rice. But as it stands now, I think we have already missed that target. Things are not looking good for even rice production. So it's the policy direction. And today, government policy has also given another direction because they have now reduced the subsidy from 50% to 15%. Why that is being done is it baffles the stakeholders and it baffles farmers, because why the need for subsidy of the fertilizer is because the fertilizer was so costly that farmers could not buy the quantities that is needed for maximum yield. Now, price of fertilizer has gone up so much, more than doubled. So why will you reduce the subsidy? If you reduce the subsidy, are you now telling farmers that they now have enough money that they don't need the subsidy again? And you see, we should not use subsidy and behave with subsidy as if we are doing a favor to farmers. Subsidy is a development tool. That is why it's applied by even the developed countries. If you go to US, they use it. The European Union use subsidy, but you need to use it in a manner that it does not become a cost to you. You see, unfortunately, again, in this country, we are unable to control the way we apply subsidy. We are not able to check and make sure that the subsidy does not become a cost to us. And I'm saying this because we have all heard in 2021, when the Ministry of Agriculture came out to tell us that there was no fertilizer for farmers, and that much of the fertilizer was smuggled out because it was being smuggled by donkeys, unaided by human beings. We all heard about that, and that they could not arrest them. So how do you subsidize fertilizer, which is a cost, and then you allow that fertilizer to be smuggled out? So the subsidy can become a cost if you do not ensure that that cost you have incurred, which in natural fact should be an investment, has reached the target group. And what was the target group of the subsidy? Is to the farmers. But here is the case: you subsidize the fertilizer, and the fertilizer does not get to the farmers. So that subsidy now becomes a cost. So because of our inability to use this development tool properly, it now becomes a cost, so to speak, than what? An investment. So if it is not an investment, then of course you should expect low output. That is how our agricultural sector is not growing, even though we appear to be investing more and more or spending more and more money into it.
Talking about the fertilizer subsidy that has been reversed or has been reduced from 60% to 15%, stakeholders in the agricultural communities, they are not happy about it, and I'm sure it has also reached to you, Gao.
Yeah.
Do you intend to have some negotiations with government, or let me say Ministry of AGRIC? Do you intend to do that?
Well, negotiations can only take place when two or more parties are willing to sit together to discuss the issue before them. The Ministry of Agriculture has not created that opportunity. They have decided that, look, we are no longer going to subsidize fertilizer beyond 15%. It's a unilateral decision, you see, by the government of Ghana. But when you do that, you can't, in another vein, try to say that you are going to collaborate with the other stakeholder, because it looks like you are not even factoring in the concerns of the other stakeholder or other parties, and that is not good enough for agricultural production. So this year, for instance, if you look at the overall policy of government, the policy points to the fact that we are going to have low output at the end of 2020.
Is it as the result of that we are going to face, because Gao has already told us that we are going to face the high inflation will still continue from now till 2023. Is this as a result of the subsidies that have been reduced, or some other factors are part of it?
Well, we can separate the issues.
Okay.
The inflation will continue, and then apart from that, we are going to experience low output. The inflation is continuing because, as it stands, cost of everything has gone up. Fuel prices have gone up. Transportation costs has gone up so much. Look, even we in the cities, where we are much more enlightened, and that even transport owners cannot have their way just to decide what level they can raise the price and so on. If you go to the rural areas, it's left to the owner of the means of transport who decides how much should be put on it. So they also take advantage to increase their prices or their rates astronomically, you know. So for the cost of production, one, fertilizer prices have gone up so high, more than doubled. Subsidy has been reduced. The two of them will constrain the ability of the farmer to purchase the number of bags that are needed for a plot. You see, so there will be low application of fertilizer because the farmer cannot buy the number of bags that is needed for a unit of plot. You know, an acre of plot, a number of bags of fertilizer has to be applied there. But because the cost of the fertilizer has now gone up, the farmer will not be able to buy that. So for example, if it is 5 bags for 1 acre, the farmer will now may be able to just buy 2 bags. And when you apply 2 bags on the same plot of land, we should have received 5 bags, the output will be low. You see, that's one. Then the other thing too is that because it's not only fertilizer which is the only input, there are other inputs that are needed. For instance, land preparation, tractor services, all those have gone up because fuel prices have gone up. So the farmer will not have money to pay for the tractor services. That's one. Then the other one too is that other chemicals or pesticides that are needed to help in the farming, their prices too have also gone up. So if you put all this together, you will see that you are expecting low output. Now, that is aside. That's about the cost pertaining to the per unit of plot, you know. But because the farmers will not have enough money to meet all these costs, they will cut down the number of acres they are going to, you know, plow or cultivate for the year. Now, acreage will be cut down, and then fertilizer application will be reduced, and the overall effect is that there will be low output at the end of the year. That is about the production side. Now, when it comes to the inflation, look, you see, there is inflation that is generated from within the country, and then there's inflation that is being also imported into the country. The internal inflation has to do with the cost of fuel is going up. So when you carry from farm gate to the market center, you know, the middlemen and women will take advantage of that. Transporters will have to increase their cost, and all that will build up into the price at the market center. So the price will continue to go up. And as we sit now, there's nothing that is suggesting to us that fuel prices will not go up further. The rational thinking is that fuel prices will go up higher and higher, because that is what it has been, that's the trend of it. So what good reason do we have to think that fuel price will come down or will remain where it is today? So prices will also continue to go up. Now, we don't also know when the Russian-Ukraine war is going to end. Meanwhile, we are expecting that over a time, there will be a serious effect of it on the global economy. And then, because Ghana is so much opened to the global economy by importing almost everything, then it means imports will also go up. Our inputs for agricultural production will also go up, prices will go up, and then prices in the market for foodstuffs will continue to go up. So from now until next year, that is 2023, prices of foodstuffs will not come down. The best we can have for prices is to hope that when it gets to harvesting season, that is October to December, prices may stabilize. They may stabilize. But from now until that time, prices will continue to rise. And when it gets to that time, they may stabilize or the rate of increase may be slowed down. But when we enter 2023, as a result of the low output that we have made in the 2022, there will be less food in 2023. So the price will go up. You see? So we are not going to have prices coming down until 2023. And in 2023, we are still going to experience high prices of foodstuffs.
You spoke about the Russia-Ukraine war, that we do not know when it is going to end. And some government officials or some of our leaders have also attributed this whole food inflation to the fact that the war is going on, it's still ongoing, and it's really affecting us. Is there any truth in that we are suffering or we are having these challenges all because of the war?
I think what we are experiencing today cannot be attributed, in terms of prices of foodstuffs and so on, cannot be attributed to the Russia-Ukraine war. No. It is as a result of the low output we had last year. Look, the war had just started almost 2 months now. That cannot be the cause of the rise of prices in our market. We also know that for 2021, the harvesting period ended in December 2021. So January, February onwards, there's no harvesting, because that is, we are now beginning to plant. You see, so there will be food shortage, and this is the lean season. So prices will actually come up, and because we had low output in 2021, that is why immediately after 2021, you are already seeing prices going up. We had every cause to forewarn Ghanaians as far back as last year, and particularly the Ministry of Agriculture and Government, that they should take steps to deal with the impending shortage of food in 2022. Because given the challenges of last year, where there was no fertilizer at the time that it was needed, and where much of our fertilizer was also smuggled out, and then where we had natural disasters, where you realize that some parts of the northern part of the country, particularly upper west, rains washed away their farms and even roads. And then coupled with the opening of the Bagri Dam in Burkina Faso, which is an annual affair, which always washes away crops and then livestock and so on. And that is an annual affair. These are factors which are natural, but if you take the Bagri Dam, it's not a natural factor. It's just that we don't know how to harvest that water so that it does not destroy our farms. So until we are able to really mitigate those factors, you should expect that this year, 2022, those natural factors will also still come. And we are already experiencing the rains. In the southern part, we've seen the tidal waves, which are destroying, the coastal part of the country. What is that telling us? It is going to affect agricultural production in those areas. You see, and we should be expecting the rains are yet to come for the northern part, where, as usual, may wash away some of the crops. So all these things put together, as we talk now, we are going to have a low output at the end of 2022.
You're still watching International Trade Focus, and this is our in-depth segment. The conversation continues with the General Secretary of GAWU after this break. Don't go away. A warm welcome back. Ernest Karaway, the General Secretary of GAWU, is our guest for today on our in-depth segment. The conversation continues.
You made mention that we export most of our produce, and already government have also brought a policy that is also going to helping us to also gain some food. So, for instance, maize and then soya bean, they've been restricted from being exported to some other countries. So, when things continue like this, when it persists, how do we see ourselves even after 2023? Because we are going to face it here in Ghana, where getting food is going to be very, very high. Are we going to have some to export in order to also help us, the foreign exchange, and also to raise revenue for the country as well?
Well, if you look at our situation, when I talk about export, the export takes place in different forms. We have the official export and the smuggling, which is also another form of export. And you should also know that we are sharing borders with our neighbors, and food goes in and comes out. So we like plantain, people carry it across to other countries to just sell. That's another form of export, but not necessarily the official export. But we should also know that Ghana imports a lot, even from our neighbors. Tomatoes, for instance, Ghana has not been able to produce even to feed ourselves.
Wow.
No, we are unable to produce to feed ourselves. The country spends about 100 million Ghana cedis to import tomatoes every year, and much of it comes from Burkina Faso. We import some from Morocco, we import from Spain, Portugal, and so on. The tomatoes you've seen in the market, which is claimed to be produced in Ghana, the puree is not produced in Ghana, it's imported. You see, so we import so much. We import so much rice. I know that again also undermines local production. And you see, you don't understand government when it comes to some of the policies, in the sense that whilst we are trying to increase domestic production of, say, rice, maize, and the things we can produce, government comes out to say that, look, please, I am going to give you subsidy, a discount, when you import those things into our country. So the benchmark value policy is one good example. It's only a name, but the thing is, it's another subsidy to importers, that the tax that you would have otherwise paid, please pay less than that. Then the money that you would have paid me, please keep it. Then it makes those imports cheaper. And I don't know why government suffering for money at this time will, allow such a policy whereby when people import, instead of collecting all the taxes that they will pay, you say a percentage of that tax should be given to you free. So it is another form of subsidy.
It has been reduced.
Yes, but it's another form of subsidy.
Anyway, yeah.
Why should you subsidize imports, particularly the imports that we can produce here?
So GAWU is strongly against the benchmark policy.
Strongly against the benchmark policy, to the extent that we can produce those things here. We are also aware that when it comes to pharmaceutical products, about 80% of pharmaceutical products we use in this country is imported. I know those ones are life-saving, imports. So if you even give a benchmark value on those ones, that may be better. But you cannot, give a benchmark value on rice, maize, all those things. You can't do that. But when you're doing that, you are killing your own industries.
But sir, do we have the capacity of producing rice to, like, for it to be sufficient in this country if we do not import some from the outside?
No, as it stands now, for now, we don't still have that capacity. The capacity is not built overnight.
Okay.
You know, you build it gradually.
Okay.
You know, but what we are even saying is that the point I'm making here is that when you are importing rice, must you have a benchmark value on it? No, because it's already produced here. Just let the importer pay the full tax on it. You know, so the benchmark value is just unreasonably applied. You know, you don't need to do it. From where do we start to subsidize imports into this country? And I'm saying that subsidizing imports per se is not bad, but you have to be selective. If it comes to pharmaceutical products, if you come to products that you don't produce in this country at all, then of course you should do what? Subsidize them. And more so when those products are what? Essential products. But if they are luxurious products, why should you still subsidize for people to live in a certain luxury when majority of your people are poor? You don't do that. But here is the case, government has given this sweeping policy. Now when pressure was put on it, you said, look, we are only reducing it. But it has not been taken off. You know.
So you want it to be scrapped off, like?
It should be scrapped off, particularly on the item that we are producing here.
Okay.
So that we can stem local growth.
Okay.
You see? Because when you produce, there is employment creation. But when you buy, even though they will say there's employment creation, that employment creation is not enduring. There are few jobs that are created through imports, unless you are importing something to use for what? For domestic production. For instance, if government decides to put a benchmark value on fertilizer, so that the fertilizer can be cheaper here for farmers to use for production, that could be understandable, because we don't produce fertilizer as of now. But you cannot also continue to depend outside to produce fertilizer, to buy fertilizer for your own agricultural system. We are not going to stop producing today, tomorrow, and forever. We will continue to produce. So you have to look at policies that will encourage fertilizer production in this country. And for all these years, we sat down, we don't produce fertilizer in this country. Now government is talking about partnering, to have a partnership with some companies to come and produce. Well, that will be good for us. That will be good for us. They should come and set up a fertilizer factory in Ghana. That will be good for us. Than to continue to import. Because when you import with what? Foreign currency. And that is also creating the inflation. The dollar cedi rate, which is depreciating. And all those things are fueling into the price increases in our country. And we just need to take the bold steps. But as it stands now, if you look at the government policies, two of them, the benchmark value does not support agricultural production. The fertilizer subsidy, which they have reduced, does not support agricultural production. The quantity they are even supposed to cover this year is going to be less than what the total fertilizer they subsidized last year. So if you are reducing the quantity that you subsidize this year, you are also reducing the value that you are subsidizing this year. Then what signals are you sending to agricultural production here? You are saying that agricultural production will be low this year. You are simply using policy to cut down agricultural production. That's what policy does. You see, this is what policy does. And many people will also stop going into agriculture because the cost will be unbearable. It will be unbearable. Apart from that, when you even produce, the imported produce will be cheaper because government is subsidizing the imports.
Would there be a day or would there be a time, would we get to a certain point where we'd have to, let's say already we are importing foodstuffs and all that, would we get to a certain point that we have to like import almost like 80% or like 90% foodstuff from outside in order to support what we already have here? Can we get to that point?
Well, we can get to that point if we don't take steps. The signs are clear that we are increasing our imports. Our domestic production is not good enough to meet our growing demand. And you should know that population is growing. And once our population is growing, the demand for food will grow. You see, the per capita consumption of food will grow. Either it is rice, it is maize, it is tomatoes, or whatever. It will grow. So we will need more quantity of, for instance, maize next year than we need today, because the population will go up. You see? So we can't continue to depend on imports. You know, imports are said that you have their good and bad. They are only good when, for instance, the imports are meant to bring in raw materials which you use for domestic production.
Okay.
And then two, when you are imported at the time that you have been hit by disaster,
Okay.
where the food level has gone down to a certain level, which you need to import to augment, you know, that's when you have to. Otherwise, you don't import what you can produce here. If you import what you can produce here, then you are destroying local production. You see? And the whole argument that the Russia-Ukraine war will have the full impact of it later, but not now.
Not now.
Not now. So the experiences that we are having today regarding price increase of foodstuffs is not as a result of the Russia-Ukraine war. It is because our own output, agricultural output for last year, is low. It's low. And I believe you can verify this. The ministry last year insisted that we're going to have what? A bumper harvest for 2021. We should be asking them, where is the bumper harvest? If we had a bumper harvest, even if prices are going to go up, they will not go up the way they are today. Look, most of the foodstuffs in the market, they have either gone up by 50% or 100% or more than that. You know, between December to date, between January to date. And if we are going to go by that rate, then what will be the price of foodstuffs in the next 2 months, 3 months? You see, so we can save ourselves, but we need to take strong policy measures. For instance, government policy to cut down budgetary allocation to various sectors of the economy. Agricultural sector should not be part of it. You see, in fact, what we need is increased budgetary allocation to the agricultural sector this time of our development. Because we are in crisis, so once we are in crisis, we need to increase investment in it. But once we are increasing investment in it, if you look at what is also on the ground, the story is not good, because you cannot subsidize fertilizer imports and then you allow that fertilizer to be smuggled out. You see, so government needs to ensure that any bag of fertilizer that is imported into this country and it is subsidized does not move out of this country, but rather get to the target group. And who is the target group? It's the farmer. And then you also make sure that the farmer applies the fertilizer as it's required. Don't let that farmer take that fertilizer, go and sell it out. Don't let people who are not farmers get the fertilizer and then now go and sell it at what? Market price to the farmers. These are measures that we need to take, and they are within our means. So long as we don't do that, we would continue to depend on imports. And if we continue to depend on imports the rate at which we are doing, and even now promoting imports by the benchmark value system, then it means that it will get to a point where in some of the food we may be importing about 90% of it, 80% of it, and so on.
It is so obvious that this thing is really going to affect us if we don't really take care or take a second look at the situation. But I also find out that how well should we as in Ghanaians should prepare for it. Should we go back to the Operation Feed Yourself, so we all plant in our backyards and all that in order to support this? Would you advise us to go back to that?
You see, the Planting for Food and Jobs program is similar to Operation Feed Yourself. And then Operation Feed Your Industry. But it isn't that we have ever lacked good policies in this country.
Okay.
But we fail to implement them according to specification, what we say they should be. We also fail to implement them to the letter. You know, and most of our good policies, we abandon them along the line. We stop implementing them. And then apart from that, we don't implement them according to the specification that we have given to them. The Plan for Food and Jobs program is a good one. You say you subsidize fertilizer for farmers. You subsidize the fertilizer and the fertilizer does not get to the farmer. Is it not bad implementation? And bad implementation will lead to cost, irrecoverable cost, because we have already used dollars to buy the fertilizer, and then the fertilizer now finds its way into neighboring countries. Ghana cannot have enough money to buy fertilizer and come and supply to our neighboring countries. We can't do that. But we have got the means to ensure that what we have imported does not get out of our country. But here is the case, again, implementation, again, we have failed to do that. So you see, it's not just about giving more money to agriculture. It's about also making sure that all the leakages in the agriculture sector are plugged. You can't continue fetching water into a barrel that has got holes and is leaking. The first thing is to plug those holes, and then you continue to now give more water. Otherwise, you don't say that, oh, the barrel is empty, and then you need more water. Then you put it there, then the water leaks away. Then you say it needs more water. No, that is not what we should be doing. And all this is within our means. And we are calling on government, you know, to reflect on this.
Okay.
You see, that one, our current agricultural production system and policy is not good enough, because you can't reduce subsidy at this time when prices of fertilizers and so on have gone up. You don't need to do that. You don't cut down budgetary allocation to agriculture this time. Look, when there are wars, when the COVID came, what happened? People were stocking food. It is food that is the immediate thing. So if we are not an industrialized country, a manufacturing country, but we are what? An agricultural country, then how come that even the food where we have got capacity, we cannot even produce that one? And when people are hungry, what will happen to them? Crisis all over. So I think that we have a solution. The only thing is that we need to be very focused. And as it stands, the Planning for Food and Jobs program needs to be reconsidered. It just needs to be reconsidered. It needs to be reviewed. It needs to be audited. It needs to be structured, and then it needs to be reformulated. And this cannot be done by the ministry alone. We need a stakeholder engagement to make sure that we examine it and look at it and see how we can identify the challenges, the magnitude of the challenges, and what are the appropriate solutions we should implement to make sure that this Planning for Food and Jobs program takes us to subsequent years. But as it stands now, it has not led us to increasing agricultural output. And last year was a clear example. There was no fertilizer. You have allowed the fertilizer to be smuggled out. Then output, as we sit now, we don't even know what is the quantity of maize we produced last year? What is the quantity of rice we have produced last year? Soya bean. So what are you restricting? You are restricting a quantity that we don't know. They should come out with those figures, so that we can be encouraged that, output is going up, there's something wrong. But if we know the output is low, then it strengthens us. It forewarns us to take steps to increase output. But as we said now, what is the output of maize for 2021? We don't know. What is about the rice? We don't know. What is the quantity of maize which is in the country today? Now that we are restricting its exportation, what is the quantity? What is the quantity of soya bean? We don't know. Those figures are not available for us to examine. And they just say that, look, we are restricting it. What are you restricting? What is the quantity? And what will be the impact of it on prices? Prices are still going up. So there are no solutions, there are immediate solutions, but we have to be looking at a solution that will take us into 2023 and beyond.
Do you have any final words?
Well, my first word will go to government, that government has a responsibility. When I say they have a responsibility, is because we have put them there as public officials to manage our resources to the benefit of all of us. Taxpayers' money to the benefit of all of us. One, government must stop the smuggling. Must reduce the smuggling to the barest minimum. Two, government must make sure that there's no wastage in the agricultural sector. Where fertilizer is meant for us, it doesn't get there. It may not necessarily be smuggling, but diversion which it goes to the wrong hands.
Yes.
We need to know that. We also need to increase surveillance on application of fertilizer, because we have to make sure that the farmers, when they get a fertilizer, they apply it there. After all, we have got offices throughout the country, in the districts and in the regions. Those officials coming from the ministry and local government must be empowered. When I say empowered here, they must be given logistics like motorbikes, fuel, and the rest to be able to ensure that fertilizers sent to their districts are given to the right people, and those people who have collected it actually apply it on their farms. You need to be meticulous, just like when you are manufacturing a car. You need to be meticulous, because one thing alone can make the car brakes to fail, can create an accident. When it comes to agriculture, we have to be meticulous that way. Then the other thing will go to the citizenry. Well, of course, we just have to also manage the food that we have in this country. Most of us have also engaged in practices as consumers that create waste. If you go to the market now, you see how food is poured on the ground and the rest. Those things cannot continue, because when you pour the food on the ground, like the food stuffs on the ground, plantain, you are talking about oranges, and so on. You pour all those things on it, their lifespan becomes short, and they become waste. And then the affluent in our society in Ghana, when they also cook food, they should cook small for what they can eat, and then they shouldn't waste the food. People just cook food beyond their limit, and then they eat. If we go to the restaurants where there are conferences, we should also take the quantity that we can eat. Sometimes you find people piling up their plate and they just go and eat small and leave it. And that food cannot be eaten by any other person. It's poured away. It's not good at all. So this is also the area that we too can contribute to preserving food and then reducing waste to make sure that there is food for all of us so that we survive.
And that was Ernest Karawe, General Secretary of GAU, discussing the recent hikes in food prices in the country and the best solution going forward with us on our in-depth segment. That does it for our in-depth segment. Don't go away. And it's a wrap for today's edition of International Trade Focus. Join us same time next week for some more on international trade-related activities here in Ghana and beyond. International Trade Focus is brought to you by GOL, Good Energy, ADB, Truly, AGRIC and more, Public Elegance and Pediasi Valley Resort. My name is Anna Spio. Join us same time next week. Bye-bye.